All right, so today we're going deep on this guy in Islamic history.
Okay.
They called him worth 1,000 men,
Wow.
Ubada ibn al-Samit. And we've got this awesome lecture by Dr. Omar Suleiman to guide us.
From the Yaqeen Institute.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
His story's got it all. Battles, wisdom, some really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, I think what's so fascinating about Ubada is that he embodies this blend of strength and piety.
Right.
You know, he was a leader in battle, but he was also a scholar, a teacher of the Quran, even an architect, designed mosques.
Wow.
Yet despite all of these accomplishments, he remained incredibly humble.
Okay, so unpack this for us. Where does this journey begin?
So Ubada was from Medina.
Okay.
His family was prominent within the Hazraj tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, he was one of the very first people from Medina to embrace Islam.
Wow.
And he even took both pledges of allegiance with the Prophet Muhammad before the Hijrah.
So before the Prophet even migrated there.
That's right.
Wow, that's early.
That's right. He was an early adopter.
So Ubada's like day one, all in.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, the pledges themselves are fascinating. The first pledge, Bayatun Nisa,
Right.
it really focused on, core moral principles, avoiding theft, slander, unlawful sexual behavior.
Really emphasizing building a just society from the ground up.
Absolutely, setting that foundation.
It's interesting. They called it the Pledge of Women. Any idea why?
It's because this first pledge, it didn't involve military action.
I see.
It was all about establishing this solid ethical foundation.
Right, right.
And I think that really resonates with what we see in Ubada's life.
He was in it for the right reasons, and not just the conquest, right? He really wanted to build something.
He was deeply committed to building a community based on principles.
Right.
And as that community grew,
Yeah.
Ubada, he really took on a lot more responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
He helped set up shelters for those immigrants coming from Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
He negotiated treaties with Jewish tribes in Medina.
Right.
And even collected zakat, which is, an annual charitable contribution.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of hats he was wearing.
That's amazing. He was like the ultimate community builder.
Absolutely.
It's incredible, though, with all that going on, all that power.
Yeah.
He never got arrogant.
There's a great story about this.
Okay.
After the Prophet, peace be upon him, advised Ubada on how to handle, zakat funds,
Mm-hmm.
Ubada wished to never be in charge of anyone else's wealth ever again.
Wow.
Like, can you imagine that? A leader actively trying to avoid power.
That's a powerful lesson for us, for everyone, really.
What do you think listeners can take away from that?
I think the fact that he wasn't looking for recognition,
Right.
he was just driven by this sense of duty, commitment to serving others. You know what I mean?
And it's about serving others. It's not about, self-aggrandizement.
Yeah, it's like leadership is a burden, not a privilege.
It's a responsibility to be taken seriously.
It's not just about doing things right.
It's about doing the right things, right?
Exactly. And he balanced all of this
Yeah.
with, his own personal spirituality.
Yeah.
And in fact, he was one of only 5 Ansar companions to memorize the entire Quran during the Prophet's lifetime.
Wow. For those of us who might not fully grasp that,
Yeah.
what was the big deal about memorizing the Quran back then?
It was a testament to one's dedication, to really memorizing the Quran during the Prophet's lifetime, being close to the revelation, not just about memorizing it, but living it and breathing the words.
Right.
Living embodiment.
Like becoming the Quran.
Exactly.
Wow.
It was a huge honor, reserved for a select few.
So we've got this, incredibly dedicated guy, spiritual guy, who also happens to be a natural leader.
Mm-hmm.
How did he end up with this nickname, worth 1,000 men?
That came from Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab,
Okay.
who was, the leader who succeeded the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh.
And Umar was not known for tossing out compliments lightly. Right.
Right.
So,
This is where it gets interesting.
yeah.
So how did this title come about?
Umar was sending Ubada with these reinforcements to a general who was having a tough time, in battle.
Right.
And he gave Ubada this note to give to the general. And the note literally said, "This man is worth 1,000 men.
Wow.
Victory will always be on his hand."
Talk about a glowing recommendation.
Right.
That's amazing.
And victory followed Ubada wherever he went.
Wow.
But, it wasn't just about the military might.
Right.
There's this really incredible encounter later on during the conquest of Egypt
Right.
between Ubada and Al-Muqawqis,
Okay.
who was the Byzantine ruler of Egypt.
Yeah, so this is the story, right, where Al-Muqawqis refused to even speak with Ubada because he was black.
Yeah, and this really highlights Ubada's character.
Yeah.
So when al-Muqawqis came out to meet the Muslim army, he saw that Ubada was black.
Yeah.
And he just refused to speak to him directly.
Wow.
He said, no, bring me someone else. So at this point, I mean, do you think al-Muqawqis was like genuinely swayed by Ubada's words, or was it more of a strategic concession?
Probably a combination of both.
Okay.
Right. I mean, the Muslim army's response was crucial here.
Right.
They stood their ground.
Right.
Made it clear that, they would only take orders from Ubada.
Wow.
And that, his race was completely irrelevant.
So they basically forced him to confront his own racism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was his reaction to that?
He was stunned.
Yeah.
He was so used to these hierarchies based on race and social status.
Yeah, totally.
And here you have this army saying, no, this is our leader.
Right. And not just that, but that it's about piety, that it's about character.
Right. It's about righteousness.
Wow. So they basically gave him an impromptu lesson on Islamic, like the concept of equality.
Yeah, they said black and white are all the same to us.
Wow. Did that change his mind?
It definitely shook him.
Okay.
And eventually he agreed to speak with Ubada.
Okay.
Although he still asked him to speak softly.
Like, seriously?
Yeah. Claiming that he was afraid of Ubada because of his blackness.
Wow. So just another attempt to, like, demean him?
We can't know his true motivations.
Right, right.
But it just shows how deeply ingrained this prejudice was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did Ubada, like, just give in?
No, not at all.
Okay.
He addressed al-Muqawqis directly.
Yeah.
And he said, if you're afraid of my blackness, there's 1,000 more just like me.
Wow.
Just as brave, ready to fight for their beliefs.
Powerful.
And then he went on to lay out, like, the motivations of the Muslim army.
Right.
That they weren't driven by conquest or worldly gain, but by their faith and their commitment to justice.
So he turned the tables, right.
Yeah.
He used his own experience of racism to illustrate, like, the strength of the Muslim army.
Absolutely, he did. And, some accounts even say that al-Muqawqis was shaken by Ubada's words.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he said to those around him, have you ever heard people talk like this? What he has said is alarming me much more than his appearance.
So it was more than just, like, negotiating. This was a clash of, like, worldviews. This is a clash of ideology.
Yeah, it was really about challenging these ingrained prejudices.
Right.
And presenting this radically different way of seeing the world.
Yeah, a world where, a person's worth is measured by their character,
right.
not their skin color.
Exactly, yeah.
This really highlights how Ubada was not only, this skilled warrior, a leader,
yeah.
but also, like, a powerful orator and diplomat.
You're absolutely right.
Ooh.
And his story reminds us that, standing up to injustice and prejudice, it's not just about these grand gestures.
Right.
It's about embodying those values in every interaction that you have.
In the day-to-day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so after the conquest of Egypt, Ubada played a vital role in actually developing the newly conquered territory.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, so he helped establish the city of Fustat, which became the first capital of Muslim Egypt.
Wow.
And he even built the first mosque there.
Wait, hold on. So he wasn't just a warrior. He wasn't just a leader. He was also an architect.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was about building.
Yeah.
He was a community builder.
Totally.
And so, his contributions extended beyond the battlefield.
That's amazing.
And speaking of building, you can't forget the conquest of Cyprus.
Right. So this is where we lose his wife. Right?
Yeah, this is the tragic death of
Hiram.
Okay. For those who need a refresher, the conquest of Cyprus, that was a significant naval campaign, expanded Muslim influence in the Mediterranean.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And, Hiram, she was a remarkable woman in her own right. She was actually the sister of Ubada's first wife.
Oh, wow.
And also the widow of his uncle.
Oh, okay.
So, she had this close connection to the family.
Yeah, and she died during that conquest, right?
Yeah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had actually prophesied that she would die as a martyr.
Oh, wow.
During a naval expedition.
Oh, wow.
And tragically, that prophecy came true during this conquest.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's a very sad story.
Yeah.
And
what happened?
Well, she passed away.
During the fighting or
the details aren't exactly clear.
Okay.
But she died during this expedition.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, a very sad moment.
So Ubada loses his wife, but then he still had to like lead the army, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine the grief he must have felt.
Yeah, of course.
But he continued to lead the campaign,
Wow.
showing incredible resilience
Yeah.
and commitment.
Yeah.
And he understood that, his duty extended beyond his personal sorrow,
Right.
that he had a responsibility.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but eventually he did retire to Palestine.
Okay, so he finally got to like kind of enjoy a little peace,
He
right?
did, but, his life was never truly quiet.
Of course, of course.
He continued to teach the Quran,
Right.
offer his wisdom,
Yeah.
engage in community affairs.
So he was always like, giving back.
Yeah, but he had another kind of a run-in with Muawiyah.
Wait, Muawiyah again.
Yeah.
What happened this time?
Well, the details of their dispute are a bit murky,
Okay.
but it seems that they clashed over some issue,
Okay.
possibly related to, governance or policy.
Right.
And, Ubada was a man of strong convictions,
Yeah.
and he wasn't afraid to challenge authority,
Right.
even if it meant, going up against someone like Muawiyah.
So he left Palestine again?
Yeah, he left his post.
What did Caliph Umar think about that?
You'd think Umar would be angry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, totally.
But when Ubada explained the situation, Umar, instead of reprimanding him, he praised him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, "May Allah disgrace a land that doesn't have a person like you."
Wow.
Like, he recognized
That's amazing.
Ubada's integrity,
Yeah.
his commitment to justice, even if it meant sometimes,
Going against the grain.
going against the grain.
So he basically sent him back to Palestine with like a pat on the back.
Pretty much, yeah. He told him, look, you're not going to be under anyone's authority.
Wow.
You do what you think is right.
Wow.
And then he sent Muawiyah a letter
Oh, really?
telling him to leave Ubada alone,
Wow.
to let him make his own decisions.
So like Umar understood how to handle strong personalities.
Yeah, he basically told Muawiyah, look, this guy answers to a higher authority.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
So did they ever work things out?
they did.
Okay.
And in fact, they went on to fight many battles together,
Oh, wow.
putting aside their differences for the greater good of the Muslim community.
Right. So Ubada wasn't just like a man of principle, right? He was also pragmatic. He knew when to like, compromise for the greater good.
Yeah, exactly. He understood that sometimes, achieving a greater goal
Yeah.
requires, setting aside personal disagreements and
Right.
working together.
Yeah, wow.
But his story doesn't end there.
Oh.
As he got older, he became aware of these growing tensions
Uh-oh.
and dissension within the Muslim community.
Okay.
And these were, kind of the early signs of what would later become the fitna,
Right.
which was this major internal conflict
Hmm.
that led to the assassination of Caliph Uthman.
Right. Okay. So even in his later years, Ubada was still like very much connected to the community and the problems that they were facing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did he get caught up in those conflicts?
Well, he witnessed the beginnings
Huh?
of these internal conflicts,
Right.
but he didn't live to see them fully unfold.
Okay.
But there's a story about his death that's
Yeah.
particularly moving. That really encapsulates his character.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Okay, so like what happened at the end?
Well, as he was nearing death, Ubada asked his family to carry him outside his home
Okay.
and gather everyone he'd ever interacted with.
Like everyone.
Yeah, he wanted to address everyone one last time.
I mean, was that even possible?
It might sound impossible, but he was determined.
Right.
And you have to remember, this is a man who dedicated his life to community.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm guessing this wasn't like a small gathering.
It was not a small gathering.
What did he want to say to all these people?
He told them, he said, look, I believe this is my last day on earth
Oh, wow.
and the beginning of my afterlife.
Heavy stuff.
And then he did something extraordinary.
Okay.
He asked everyone for forgiveness.
Like, wait, forgiveness. Was he feeling guilty about something?
He said he may have wronged someone at some point, intentionally or unintentionally, through his words or actions.
Oh, wow.
He didn't want to face the law with any outstanding debts. So he said, while you still have the chance,
Right.
speak up, seek retribution.
Talk about humility.
It's incredible.
Right, especially when you're the one who's dying, to be the one asking for forgiveness.
Right. What was the reaction?
Yeah, what does people say?
No one had anything negative to say.
Wow.
They praised him. They
Really?
said he was a father figure to them, a mentor, a shining example.
So they had nothing to forgive.
They had nothing to forgive.
Wow. That says a lot about the impact he had.
Yeah, he wasn't just a leader. He was a beloved member of the community.
Right.
And even on his deathbed, with his last breaths, he still had one final lesson to share.
Oh, wow.
He narrated a hadith.
So even at that moment, he's still teaching.
Still teaching, yeah.
What was the hadith about?
The hadith states that whoever sincerely believes in Allah as the one true God
Right.
and accepts Muhammad as his messenger,
Right.
Allah will protect that person from hellfire.
So powerful. Such a powerful message to leave people with.
And a fitting final lesson
Yeah.
from a man who lived his life with such faith.
Yeah. His whole life was just, wow.
Testament to faith, courage, service.
So inspiring.
It's a story that, transcends time and continues to inspire people around the world.
Yeah. And it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does this all mean for us listening to this story, all these centuries later?
I think Ubada's story challenges us to really reflect on our own values
Yeah.
and how we choose to live our lives.
That's right.
He reminds us that true leadership doesn't come from power or position.
Yeah.
It comes from integrity, humility,
Humility, Ree.
an unwavering commitment to what you believe in.
So powerful.
It shows us that it is possible to be strong and compassionate,
Right.
to fight for justice, but still seek forgiveness.
To lead but stay humble.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And that each of us, we all have the potential
Yeah.
to make a positive impact on the world.
Just like Ubada.
Just like Ubada did, one step at a time.
That's a great note to end on. What an incredible story. What an incredible deep dive today. I really feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah, me too. It's always inspiring to go back and revisit these stories.
Absolutely. And you know what? I hope our listeners got as much out of this as we did.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and,
And keep diving deep.
that's right. Dive deep.